We're here today for a review hearing. We're conducting this through Zoom under a finding of good cause and agreement of the parties. We are also live streaming, and Ms. Taylor is making our record. Okay, we'll go ahead and take announcements.
Todd Alvey on behalf of the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services. I'm present and ready to proceed, Your Honor. Yolanda Novak is a St. Francis Ministries permanency specialist who will give us an update.
All right, and go ahead, Ms. Stevens.
Bethany Stevens on behalf of the father, present and ready.
Sage Seal, Your Honor, attorney at law, and I'm ready.
Okay, and CASA is present today, and then as I said, but probably not on the record, Ms. White has been trying to log in. She so far has not been successful, but I've seen her in the waiting room now. So she may be having internet problems. And Ms. Sapien is not logged in either. So let's go ahead and discuss the motion to transfer that's been filed. Mr. Alvey.
Yes, Your Honor. The child, the last I was aware, was in RTC in Harris County, which is in Houston. Mom is relocated to Fannin County, and we believe that eventually these two will be reunited. We think that because that mom will be the legal residence, that it would be more appropriate for Fannin County to handle the case. So we're asking that the case be transferred to Fannin County.
Okay, and we've got Ms. White logged in now. Ms. White, all we've done is just call the case, and we're just talking about the motion to transfer the case down to that part of the state where you are and where Daniel is. So we are very close to a final in this case. I think the real issue will be you're wanting to transfer to Fannin County?
Correct.
How close is that to Harris County?
Judge, I don't know exactly. I know Fannin County is more East Texas. Harris County is Houston, so that's
right.
So I'm not sure that they're not necessarily contiguous, but it would be closer.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it took us about 5 hours to drive down there from here.
So Ms. White, you're in Fannin County. What town or city do you live in?
Leonard.
And what is that close to?
Bonham.
Okay. Okay, so what I'll have to do is, Mr. Alvey, you all have filed that motion, is that correct?
Correct.
Has anything been directed to Fannin County yet?
I reached out and talked with the regional director for Child Protective Services in that region, and she agreed with me that Fannin County would be the appropriate place for that if we transferred it. The county attorney is the one who handles CPS cases in Fannin County. I've not had an opportunity. I've reached out to him, but I haven't had an opportunity to talk to him.
Well, not that it's a UCCJEA situation, but it's kind of similar. Do I need to reach out to whoever the Child Protection Court judges in Fannin County to see if they will accept the case?
I don't know that it's necessary, Judge, but I don't know that it hurts either. So, the rules don't necessarily require that.
No, they don't. But I didn't know if it would. It's so close to the date of a final hearing. That's my concern, that the court there may say, whoa, maybe we'll take it once you get your final done.
Well, and that might be the most appropriate thing, Judge. I'm not sure that we're going to be able to reunite this family at the final, but that's we haven't really discussed that a whole lot, or I haven't with Miss Sapiens.
Well, I mean, and we all know, I mean, this the situation in the case, and we're working with Daniel and trying to kind of get him leveled out and get behaviors under control, and so I'm wondering if it would make sense to try to get you all into mediation pretty quickly. I mean, if you know, if we don't think Daniel's ready to come home yet, and we've already extended the case, you know, then I mean, the obvious option is possible PMC. You know, monitored return of transition and drag that out a little ways, but you know, just with Daniel's situation, I don't know. I think you get into kind of a gray area there.
Right.
How long can you transition? You know, so you know, maybe the thing is for y'all to either have an informal settlement conference or true mediation. I'll go along with whichever you all want to do. And maybe we can get a final disposition and even then send the case. I'm just a little concerned about the timing of this, that a court there may say, you know, you're sending this to us and it's on the, you know, we're on the brink here and we know nothing about this and we've not worked with these folks, and, you know.
I understand, and I don't have any problems with I don't want to withdraw my motion, but vacating any hearing or waiting until a later date to have a hearing on that. So,
yeah. I mean, if they take it, I think if they take it, then that's fine. I just almost suspect you may get some pushback just because it's so late in the case, and they may say, okay, if it's a PMC, then send it to us after a final disposition. But yeah, I'm fine either way. Whatever pans out. But it kind of seems like there's some handwriting on the wall about what we may need to do to keep working with Daniel.
correct.
Okay. Since Miss Sapien isn't here today, I would guess, you know, what do you all think? Do you think you want to just try to do an informal settlement conference? Do you think you need a mediator? Or?
Judge, if you'll allow me a couple of weeks, I'll get hold of Miss Sapien and Miss Stevens and see if I can't get a proposal presented.
Okay. All right.
I think we can do it without a formal mediation at this time.
Okay. All right. That sounds good. Okay, then we'll go ahead and just have a review hearing now, and you know, kind of keep us posted about the transfer situation. For, you know, if they should agree to take it, then just let us know. But okay. So, what do we have new since the court report was filed?
So, Miss White and Daniel have started family therapy. They've had 3 sessions and they have another one scheduled for tonight. Overall, those seem to be going well. They're working on communicating and how he can handle negative emotions better. Daniel continues to be in individual counseling and group counseling at placement as well. We're asking placement if mom can maybe join his counselor from placement. It's a different counselor than they do family therapy with. So I'm not sure if they'll be able to accommodate that at all, but we want to see if they can, even if it's for a couple sessions, since it's a different counselor. Daniel has done pretty well in school the last couple of weeks. He hasn't gotten any write-ups or gone AWOL at school. I spoke to him last night, and he's excited. He did have an in-person visit with mom. Samantha was able to go down and stepdad go down and see him over the weekend of March 9th. They did see him Saturday and Sunday. The visit went well. And we have also just planning to have him go home this weekend for Easter at mom's home. And placement is going to transport him halfway and meet mom in Palestine. It's about 2.5 hours each way for each party. and then he'll stay the weekend, and mom will bring him back to Palestine and meet placement Monday for placement to receive him back. We went over expectations with Daniel about the visit, that it is just a visit, and he was so excited. He's like, my heart is racing. I'm so happy. He did say that he wants to be able to go home permanently, and we kind of talked about the reunification, and he didn't really understand that, so I tried to explain that to him, and I kind of talked to him about a monitored return, and I talked differently at a separate time with mom about a monitored return too. Part of the case being in her area, if they do a monitored return, a worker would be seeing them weekly during that time. And that wouldn't be me, because it's too far for me, but they would be assigned a worker to kind of help them with that reunification process when that is ready to happen, ma'am. Samantha is attending the family sessions. She's completed the rest of her services. She hasn't provided check stubs, but she has reported that she is working at Domino's there in Leonard. I have not had any contact with Mr. Frost. I have sent him letters and have not received any information back from him in quite some time.
He is still incarcerated, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, ma'am.
He was writing letters to Daniel at one point in time. Has that stopped?
That has stopped. I haven't received anything since November and he would usually send me a letter and Daniel a letter, but I haven't received anything from him in several months.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm really glad to hear that the in-person visit's gone so well, and I'm excited he's going to get to go for Easter. I hope that he handles that, the return home. Miss White, I think all you can do is really just encourage Daniel that, this is a process and we're on our way, and as long as he keeps doing well at placement, the closer and closer we get to that goal. This is one of the hardest things for kids when we get to this point in a case where they start going home for some visits, and then, they have to go back to placement, and especially if the visit goes really well, it's kind of hard to explain to him, okay, I know it went really well, but you can't stay, so it's a tough deal, but all we can do is put as positive a spin on it as we can for him.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, he understands that he's being, and we're tested, to see how this weekend goes, and I guess a trial error run, just to see how he does in place. And so he's, from what I can understand, he's comprehending the rules and is understanding them. So we're hoping for the best, and I hope this weekend's awesome.
Yeah, and I like that. You got to put it in terms and words that he relates to, and a test run is a good way to say it.
Yes,
and we can talk about monitored returns and transitionals and this and that, and that kind of doesn't mean much to him, but I suspect that he gets what a test run is. So
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate all your hard work and your willingness to do this travel to get him to and from. So, anything that you've got some questions about today, or anything that I can help you with today?
No, Honor, I don't.
Okay. All right, then, Ms. Stevens.
Yeah, Your Honor, my client has not been in contact with me or writing letters back to me. I was curious. I think I know the answer to this, but I just wanted to ask while we were all together. I know in November when we had a hearing, we had all talked about how the child does better when he does have contact with his dad. And we were trying to set up a phone call or a Zoom conversation while his dad was in prison. Did that ever happen?
I don't know that it did.
If I may judge, it did not. We tried repeatedly through my office to get that set up, and we just met nothing but, resistance from the unit. I don't know at this point. As far as I know, Daniel has not said anything about receiving any letters from Dad anymore. So I don't know at this point if that would be beneficial. But they have made it very difficult to try and get that accomplished.
Does
Yeah,
he ask?
I'm sorry.
Does he ask about his dad?
He has not mentioned him to me in the conversations that I've had recently. It's probably been since around December since I've mentioned anything about the dad and had any feedback from Daniel on that.
Okay, Ms. Stevens, you were going to say something.
Just that TDC makes it extraordinarily difficult for all attorneys, whether it's an ad litem or their own attorney. I don't think TDC likes the Sixth Amendment. So right now I have nothing to update the court with other than I will continue trying to reach my client and trying to, I believe we have a May 22nd trial date right now. And I will do everything in my power to make sure he is accessible by Zoom or at least by telephone on that day.
Okay. And we can do an order if we need to send it, just let us know what you want, what you need us to do on that. It's just kind of odd that he was writing for a while and maybe that the idea that this visit was going to happen, and when it didn't, he got discouraged. I can certainly see that as a possibility. If Daniel's not actively asking about him and all, maybe that's just a bear we don't poke right now, and let that sort of happen as it happens. When is his projected release date?
I have it right here, Your Honor. I pulled it up in case you asked. Parole eligibility date is March 7th, 2024. So it's passed. And then his maximum sentence date, if he has to do all of his time for cumulative offenses, would be July 2069. So that's 45 years from now.
Yeah. Okay. You can't tell from looking at that whether he was denied parole then.
I mean, I don't want to speculate, Your Honor, because I think common sense says, yes, he must have been, but I also, sometimes they don't come up when they're supposed to.
Right.
And that was just 20 days ago. So I don't know if a hearing's been delayed. I would prefer not to speculate if it's okay with the court.
Sure. No, I understand. Okay. All right, Miss Seal, anything to add today?
No, Your Honor, just that reiterate that Daniel was pretty excited about this weekend, so I think it's good that he's having something to look forward to.
Okay, we lost Mr. Alvey. He's logging back in.
Sorry about that, Judge. I'm never had problems here, but I did.
It's okay. You didn't miss anything other than I just dismissed y'all from the case.
Thanks.
That's all. But that's all you need.
Okay.
No. So, okay, and CASA.
We don't have a whole lot to add either. Just speaking with Daniel, he is super excited about the visit. We also have been talking with him about, kind of like Samantha said, the test run thing. You've really got to be on good behavior because this is going to really, project the future. So he has been doing well. And I pray that it stays that way. He has a tendency to kind of be up and down, but overall, he seems to be doing well. He likes it still at placement. Placement seems to be well for him. So at this time, we're excited that he's going to get to go home and just hope that those go well so that it can be a smooth transition.
Okay. All right, then I appreciate everybody, and I will continue the department as temporary managing conservator of the child will continue his current placement. All about the visits and anything else that we can work in as far as visits down the road. And then I'll let you all visit and talk about possible resolutions. Otherwise, I'll see everybody back on May 22nd of 2024. for our final, let me just say, if you all do come up with something and you want to do it sooner than that, let us know. I'm sure we can squeeze it in. If that's going to facilitate in getting the case transferred and kind of getting everybody in place down there. So, if you have it worked out, we don't have to wait till May 22nd, but otherwise I'll see you then. Mr. Abbey, I do want to make finding that Ms. White is certainly in compliance with her service plan, and that there's just an ongoing danger to the child to returning home yet, just based on we're still working with child's behaviors, not certainly due to Ms. White's compliance.
Yes, ma'am.
Or I guess the term would be non-compliant. So, okay. Thank you all very much, and I'll see you back in May.
Thank you,
Ms.
Your
White.
Honor.
We are here today on a final. We're conducting this through Zoom under a finding of good cause and agreement of the parties. Also, it's enabled us to bring Mr. Frost in today, and Ms. Taylor is making our record, and we are live streaming. Okay, we'll go ahead and take announcements.
Thank you, Your Honor. Todd Albee on behalf of the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services. I'm present, ready to proceed. I have Yolanda Novak, who is the St. Francis Ministries permanency specialist who's been handling this case, present, and we'll be calling her for testimony.
Bailey Sapien on behalf of Samantha White. My client is present and we're ready to proceed.
Sage Still, attorney at bottom, Your Honor, and I'm ready.
Bethany Stevens, attorney for the father, present and ready.
Okay, and CASA is also present today. All right. Mr. Alley, any announcements to make, or are we ready to call our first witness?
Judge, I don't anticipate that we're going to have a whole lot of contests today, but I would just proceed with testimony at this time, if it pleases the court.
Okay, all right. You can call your first witness.
Thank you. We would call Miss Yolanda Novak.
All right, you may proceed.
Miss Novak, you are St. Francis Ministries permanency specialist.
Correct.
Where is Daniel currently placed?
He's currently placed in an RTC in Houston area.
And how long has he been in that particular placement?
Oh my goodness, I'm sorry. I wasn't ready. Hold on just a moment. I'm sorry. He's been there since November 4th.
And has that placement made efforts to quell some of Daniel's behaviors up until this point?
Yes, and he was doing well until recently.
And how old is Daniel?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
How old is Daniel?
He's 13, sir.
Recently, however, Daniel's behaviors have escalated to a point where he's no longer welcome at his current placement. Is that correct?
That is correct.
He's been running away sometimes multiple times in a day.
Correct.
So we have to find a new placement for him soon.
Yes, the removal date for their notice is May 30th.
Daniel's mother is Samantha Butler.
Correct.
And where does Miss Butler currently reside?
In Leonard, Texas.
And Leonard, Texas is in what we from the Texas Panhandle consider East Texas, correct?
Correct. Region 3.
And recently, Miss Butler has begun having some unsupervised visits with Daniel.
Correct. She has.
And can you tell us how those visits have been going?
The visits that she's reported have went well until this last one that they had at the beginning of May. And she saw him on Saturday, and that visit went well, but she went to see him on Sunday before she left to tell him goodbye. And then Daniel, he just wanted to go home with her, and his behaviors have been escalating since then. But when she's had him, she has reported she's just had, typical behaviors with him, no explosive behaviors. She's been able to redirect him when she had him home over Easter, just normal behaviors, nothing severe like what he's been having at placement and at school.
Daniel's made it clear to you and to his support that part of the reason for issues at the RTC are because he really just wants to go home.
Correct.
Miss Butler was ordered to work services.
Yes, she was.
And has she completed the services she was ordered to work?
Yes, she is still working with Daniel with family therapy. They haven't been able to have a session since March. They had one scheduled for May 1st, but due to Samantha was present, counselor was present, Daniel wasn't present, and with his runouts, they haven't been able to reschedule one. But she's completed everything else, sir.
If I may interrupt, we have one scheduled for the 29th of this month.
Okay.
Yeah, Ms. Novak. Mark Frost is Daniel's father.
Correct.
And for the record, Mr. Frost is currently incarcerated.
Yes.
Do you know where he is incarcerated?
The unit.
Upper unit.
Yes. Oh, sorry. Thank you. Is it Gatesville?
Gatesville,
Okay.
Texas.
All right. So, and he has been pretty much incarcerated since the beginning of this case.
Yes.
So, even though he's been asked to work some services, it's been very difficult for him to comply with that due to his incarceration in Gatesville.
Correct.
Do you know what his release status is, if any?
I just seen parole. I'm waiting on the answer.
Okay, Mr. Frost, just let her. She's the one under oath right now, so
All
just
right.
yeah. If we need to know something like that, we will ask you. All right, Mr. Albee, go ahead.
Thank you, Ms. Novak. Do you know what Mr. Frost's release status is?
I do not.
Okay. Now, Daniel's been in care for how long?
Since November of 2022.
Do you feel like that it would be in Daniel's best interest at this time to be returned to his mother?
I do not.
You feel like it would be in Daniel's best interest at this time to be returned to his father? And I didn't hear you, Ms. Novak.
Sorry, no, sir.
Do you feel like it would be contrary to Daniel's general welfare to be returned to either parent today?
Yes.
And that it would not be safe for Daniel to return him to either parent today?
Correct.
Are you asking then that the court consider appointing the department as a permanent managing conservator of Daniel, so that we can continue working, trying to alleviate his behavior so that we can reunite him with his family?
Yes.
Now, part of that would be that we would seek placement in Region 3, which would be closer to Miss Butler.
Correct. We are.
Have you already put in for that placement?
We put in the request. We have not had a response back yet.
Now, because of Daniel's history, it may be difficult to find a placement for Daniel.
Correct.
Now, he has some history of being violent towards Miss Butler and to Miss Butler's other children. And then at the current placement, he's been, it's hard to keep him in home.
Correct.
But we are looking, and we want to continue increased visitations with Miss Butler. We want to continue family counseling. We just don't think that it would be safe to return Daniel to Miss Butler today.
Correct.
And though Mr. Butler has announced that he's had some parole hearings and he thinks that he may be getting close to parole, that doesn't mean that it would be safe to return Daniel to Mr. Butler today.
I'm not Mr. Butler.
Or excuse me,
I mean,
Frost
Mr.
today.
Frost. Correct, sir.
And I apologize, Mr. Frost. It's something that happens to me sometimes. So anyway, you're asking the court to continue the department as permanent managing conservator of Daniel at this time.
Yes.
I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
Okay, Ms. Sapien?
No questions, Your Honor.
Ms. Stevens?
Thank you, Your Honor. Just real briefly. So since the placement has put in their notice, you said that the child will be going to a group home for now?
We don't have a new placement for him at this time. We are looking, we put in a request since his current placement did put in a 14-day notice on him that will be up on May 30th. So our placement team is looking for a new placement for Daniel. We're looking at in the area that is closer to mom, but we have not found one yet.
Okay. And I've been concerned just about all of the runaways of this child. Is there some sort of placement or home that y'all have that has specialized training in helping prevent runaways?
Our placement coordinator, they send it out to all types of placements. So they will be included in that search, but we have not had a response of anyone accepting him yet.
Okay. What will happen if no one does accept him?
St. Francis does a child watch, and we will pick him up and have him in child watch until we find placement for him.
And what does child watch mean?
Child watch is St. Francis would transport him to it'd be the Amarillo area, and we have a visitation house that he can stay at that has a bed, bathroom, shower, and we will provide round the clock supervision until placement is found.
Is it a lockdown facility?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so he could still run away in the middle of the night from there?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Does mom want him to come home?
Yes, ma'am.
And he wants to go home?
Yes, ma'am.
And a while back, I think 2 hearings ago, we had some testimony that when the child was receiving letters from his dad, he was acting a little bit better, correct?
I believe so. I don't remember exactly, but
and in fact, we tried to get a Zoom visit for him with his father, correct?
Yes, we did. We did
But TDC
try that.
TDC stood in the way of that, correct?
As far as I know, yes.
And Mr. Frost did resume writing letters to his son, is that right?
He did. I tried to send them to Daniel and they got returned to me. I missed the address somehow for his placement and they all got returned. So I have them to resend to him, but I didn't want to send him with the possibility of having new placement for him. So I have them ready to send when I know where to send them.
Is Daniel aware that you have letters that you're holding for him from his father?
No, I don't think he does.
Pass the witness.
Okay, Ms. Seal?
Yolanda, do you believe that the current placement has exhausted all options in trying to keep Daniel from running away at this point?
I do.
And they have requested and held several meetings with all of Daniel's support group to request ideas as to how we thought we could maybe better that situation.
They have, yes.
And has Daniel expressed to you a desire to remain or stay in that placement?
He does not want to stay. He has stated that he, when I spoke to him, like he wanted to move that day. And I explained to him that wasn't possible, that it's a process. I explained to him that we are looking for new placement closer to mom. He agreed at that time to stay at placement and to stay in school, knowing that he would be moved closer to mom, but he wants to move yesterday.
And as soon as that meeting concluded, within less than 24 hours, he had already run away again. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Do you believe that Miss White is in the position currently for Daniel to return to her?
I am unsure.
And that's why you're asking for PMC to the department today so that we can hopefully secure and kind of monitor the situation to make sure everybody is ready for this next step. Is that correct?
Yes,
And do you believe that to be in Daniel's best interest?
I do.
Pass the witness, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Albee?
I have no further questions of this witness, Your Honor.
Okay, does anybody have any further questions for Ms. Novak?
No, Your Honor.
All right, then. Mr. Albee, you can call your next witness.
We'll rest, Your Honor.
All right, Ms. Sapien?
Thank you, Judge. I'll call my client Samantha Butler. You are Daniel's mom, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And did you just hear all the testimony given by Miss Novak with St. Francis?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And Miss Stevens asked Miss Novak a question. And the question was if you wanted Daniel home. Do you recall that question?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And Miss Novak's answer was that you did want him home. Do you recall that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And is that correct? Do you want him home?
Yes, ma'am. I definitely want him home. But at the same time, with him having two younger sisters, and definitely there being a past of him harming them, you know, I want to make sure that he is safe to come home, and that, you know, I'm not going to have to risk their safety over my wants and his wants to come home, if that makes sense.
So you would like him to come home. You want him to come home. He's your son, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
But you have safety concerns.
Yes, ma'am.
So are you in agreement with what Mr. Alvey is asking for, which is the department be named permanent managing conservator at this time and you be named a possessory conservator of Daniel?
I'm not quite exactly sure what those mean.
Okay. Are you okay with Daniel remaining at this time with the department?
Yes, ma'am, especially for him to get the help that he needs.
And are you okay continuing to have scheduled visitations with him?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you okay with the department continuing to make decisions for Daniel regarding his well-being and his placement?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you agree with Ms. Novak's testimony that you did complete your services?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you also in agreement that you would like for Daniel to be moved closer to you if possible?
Yes, ma'am.
That you would like visits to be increased?
Yes, ma'am.
And is it also correct, and are you in agreement with Ms. Novak's testimony that your visits with Daniel do go well?
Yes, ma'am.
Is he having these explosive outbursts with you?
No, ma'am. No, not until that last Sunday. And even when he did start escalating, it wasn't directed towards me or family. He definitely showed that it was directed towards placement.
And were you present when he was escalating?
Not necessarily. We dropped him off and we got not even 2 blocks down the road after saying our goodbyes, and placement called me to let me know that he had taken off and that if I couldn't get him back to placement, that they were going to call law enforcement on him. I was able to talk to him, mind you, in the middle of the road for about 20 minutes before I was able to get him in the car and to go back to placement. And then about 3 hours later, I was notified that he had taken off again.
So do you feel safe to continue having unsupervised visits with Daniel?
Yes, ma'am.
Is there anything else, Ms. Butler, that you want this court to know or consider when making a decision today?
No, just that, you know, when he for sure is ready to come home, you know, that I am more than ready and always wanting him to come home. We just have to get him to the point where he's safe to come home.
Thank you, Ms. Butler. I'll pass the witness.
What's the longest that he has actually been at home for an in-home visit?
It was just over Easter weekend. He came Friday. We picked him up Friday morning and took him back Monday morning. It's about 72 hours.
No problems.
No, ma'am. I mean, we had, he wasn't perfect. No child is. So, we had little minor things, but nothing like what he's been doing at placement or what he has before.
No aggression to the siblings.
No, ma'am.
All right. Mr. Abbey, any questions for Ms. White?
Thank you, Judge. Ms. White, would you agree with me that part of the reason that Daniel is currently in care is because he had been in care of the department and we sent him home to you, and then he became pretty aggressive towards you and your daughters?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. I'm sorry.
And that if any fear you have concerning Daniel right now, that's what your fear is.
Yes, sir.
And you believe that Daniel's progressed this last year and a half, but you still have some concerns.
Yes, sir.
And you would like for the department to continue trying to put you and Daniel in a position that will make it work, including family counseling between you, Daniel, and your other daughters.
Yes, sir.
And for the record, you and Mr. Frost are no longer together. Y'all aren't anticipating living together when he's released from prison.
No, sir.
Thank you, Ms. White. I'll pass the witness, Cheryl.
Okay. Ms. Stevens?
Very briefly. Ma'am, do you remember us talking about the fact that when he had contact with his dad, he was doing better? Do you remember that?
Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry.
She just passed the witness. Okay. Ms. Seal?
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Butler, during the Easter visit, you mentioned that there were a few things that Daniel had issues with, but when those issues occurred, you were able to correct it. He took that correction and there weren't any retaliation for that. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And so it was a positive response to that redirection or correction.
Yes, ma'am.
Pass the witness, Your Honor.
Okay. Ms. Sapien, anything further?
I have nothing further, Your Honor, of this witness, and I have no further witnesses.
Okay. Do you rest then?
I will rest.
All right. Ms. Stevens?
Yes, Your Honor. I will call my client. Now, you were saying that you just saw parole. How did that go?
I'm still currently waiting on the answer right now, ma'am.
Okay. And if you don't get it this time, when would you next be eligible?
In the next year.
And let's say that you never got parole. What is your date that you would be getting out approximately?
2069.
Okay. Now you remember that we had talked about your child seems to do a lot better when you are writing to him, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
You remember that we tried to get a Zoom visitation for you and your son, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And TDC is the one that stood in the way of that, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And you have been writing to him, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
It's just that the prison changed how they do mail, so it's taking a little bit longer for it to get out and get to him, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And then we also heard testimony that there's a bunch of letters that he hasn't even received or doesn't know about at this time, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Do you think that it's in his best interest to think that you have stopped writing?
In his best interest?
Yeah. Is it in his best interest to not know you're still writing?
No, ma'am, it's not.
Okay. Now, if you were to get out, you understand you haven't been able to work your services, right?
Yes, ma'am.
But if you got parole, you'd be willing to do whatever it took to remain in your child's life. Is that right?
Absolutely.
And it seems that you are a positive influence since his behavior is better when you are in contact, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
What are you hoping for your son?
That he'll go home and he won't follow my footsteps. That
And
he'll be a better person.
if you get out, do you intend to help him see that he does not want to follow in your footsteps?
Yes, ma'am. Even when I write him, I tell him, man, it's not worth it. It's not this path that he's walking down is not. It's not cool.
So like the rest of us, you see that the path he's on is not a good one, right?
No, it's not.
Pass the witness, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Abbey, you have any questions for Mr. Frost?
I do not, Your Honor.
Okay. Ms. Sapien?
No questions, Your Honor.
Ms. Seal?
No questions, Your Honor.
All right. Ms. Stevens, anything further?
No, Your Honor.
All right. You rest.
Yes, Your Honor. Sorry, my mute button it keeps sticking for some reason.
No problem. All right then. Ms. Seal, any witnesses to call today?
No witnesses, Your Honor.
All right, Ms. Seal, do you have a recommendation to make?
Your Honor, in speaking with Daniel, he is still very adamant that he does want to be home. I do believe that Miss White is in the mindset and in the environment that Daniel is able to respond positively in, but we just haven't had the opportunity to see that over a longer period of time, unfortunately, than just that three-day weekend. So at this time, I would recommend the proposal of the department being named possessory managing conservator, with Mr. Frost and Miss Butler possessory conservators. And hopefully we can get Daniel into a placement closer to mom where we can begin to further foster that relationship for longer periods of possession and access. And then as well as Mr. Frost, depending on his parole decision that comes about.
All right, thank you, Ms. Seal. And I'd like to hear from Casa.
Just to kind of piggyback off of Sage, we agree. Daniel made some really good strides and made some really good changes, but then it just seems like these last few weeks have been just haywire for him. I've talked to him several times and tried to understand why these behaviors are happening. He just keeps telling me every single time, I just want to go home. I want out of here. I want a normal life. I want to be home with my mom. So I know he wants to be home. I know he loves his mom, and I know Samantha's ready for him to be home. But I do agree that while he's made changes up until these past few weeks, it would be nice to see a little bit more time of unsupervised and a little bit more family therapy to kind of help work out those kinks before we all are completely gone out of their lives. So I think that the finding a placement in Region 3 and getting him closer is hopefully going to help.
Okay, thank y'all. All right, I've got some questions. Ms. Butler, do you work?
Samantha, are you there?
Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry. Can you repeat the question?
So do you work?
Yes, ma'am. I work at Domino's Pizza.
And so what I want to get a feel for is whether we're talking about visits or placement or whatever, that if Daniel was in your home and it's summertime, for instance, because his placement is going to end right about the time the school year is over with. I mean, who would be responsible for looking after him if you had to go to work?
It would be a combination of my dad and my husband.
Okay, so I mean, you feel like you would have supervision for him at all times?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. Okay, well, here's my concern. No matter where we find new placement, the behaviors are going to continue because I think he's made it crystal clear he's doing it because he wants to go home. And probably no matter where he's going to be placed, I mean, we run the risk of this continued runaway, which is, obviously very dangerous for him. So what I would like to do is I am going to name the Department of Family Protective Services as the permanent managing conservator. We're not done. I don't think our work is done. I'm going to place him with mom. And let's see, I mean, summer I think this is a good time to try this transition. And let's see how it goes. And if it doesn't go, then we'll be looking for placement for him. But since we're about to run out of time as it is, I think there's no time like the present to try and see how Daniel does in the home. So, Ms. Beller, what we need from you is you got to be candid with us and open and honest with us about what's going on, how he's really doing, if you're having real issues or problems. I mean, I don't want to put the other two kids in a position where they could suffer any kind of harm. It does concern me. But, I want everybody to communicate to Daniel. And of course, I mean, primarily Ms. Seal and Casa, and his caseworker, that him staying at home is very conditioned on him, you know, controlling behaviors, not putting himself in danger, or putting his siblings in any kind of danger. And that he can, you know, that he could be moved out of the home just as fast as he's getting placed there. I mean, he's 13 years old. He's capable of understanding that. So, I mean, I want Daniel to have a very clear understanding that this doesn't mean it's permanent yet. Then, you know, I would like, obviously, then to get Mom and Daniel engaged in, you know, ongoing family therapy in that region. Mr. Alley, I think at some point in time, then I think the case should be transferred.
I agree, Your Honor. And our thought was that it would be easier for me to get it transferred if we had a final disposition. Yep. So I guess my question is kind of a clarification with you. Do you want to do permanent managing conservatorship to the department and then placement to Mom, or do you want to do a monitored return to the department, to Mom, and leave the department as temporary?
No.
Okay.
I mean, I think I guess I don't. I mean, I don't really care one way or the other, quite frankly. I mean, if it's easier, you know, if it's easier to go ahead and do the monitored return and then transfer, I don't know. I guess I kind of thought it might be easier to enter a final order and then transfer it.
I think that it would be. I just wanted to make sure that you and I were on the same page. I think that a permanent order, a final order, makes it easier for me to convince Region 3, Tyler, Texas, to accept this as a transfer. So.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Your Honor.
No,
I was wondering if in the final order we could just have a provision that Mom needs to keep Dad appraised of mailing address so that he can get his letters to Daniel, and also an order having CPS immediately send the letters that he doesn't even know about to him at Mom's house. Well,
the letters will still be going through the caseworker. So, I mean, I don't know that he's got to have Mom's address right now. You know, yeah. I don't know how she feels about that, but the letters, I mean, we're still going to be involved. So the letters will still go through the caseworker. And Ms. Novak, the ones that you do have, let's try to go ahead and get those to Mom right away. I don't want Daniel placed until school is done. So I assume that's coming pretty quickly.
May I speak, Your Honor?
Yes.
His current school, I believe he's not out until June 6th. And with his behaviors with school, they were trying to schedule a meeting to see if he could be transferred to an alternative school. So he won't be out of school at his current placement until June 6th.
Yeah, but we got to have it placed somewhere by May 30th.
Yes, ma'am. And I believe Samantha said her kids are out of school this week. So their school's already ending for the year, so he wouldn't be able to transfer in to
how is that all going to affect the conclusion of his school year?
I don't know, ma'am.
Is he passing?
He was when I last knew. I haven't had an update from the school if he is or isn't.
Would the school accelerate this, over the next several days in let him try to take whatever tests or do whatever he needs to do to complete before he gets moved?
I don't know. I can ask. I don't know, but I can find out.
I mean, that's just, that's just a double whammy. I mean, if because of the notice and change of placement, he's not going to conclude the school year. That's right. Maybe that could be made up in summer school. But let's see what we can find out about that and see if the school would try to accelerate what he's got to do to show as a complete and finish to the school year.
Well, Your Honor, I have an idea. I don't know if it would work. Would you like to hear it?
Sure.
Since he has to be moved, because the notice will be up, Ms. Novak did testify about a child watch. If we had to use that for 6 days just to get him through the end of the school year and then place him with mom, I mean, she testified that that's what they would do if they didn't have another placement anyway.
Yeah. I mean, if we have to do that, then we can. I'm just, I'm still concerned about how that may affect school and everything. Because where is he going to be on child watch? Amarillo, Texas, or in Region 3? And I
We
assume
would-
it would be in Amarillo, Texas.
It would be in Amarillo. So
Yeah. What we really need to do is try to just get him to, to do whatever he needs to do so that he can show a completed end of the school year where he's at. And, if they just won't work with us on it, then I guess we'll just have to figure it out. And if it means summer school, then we'll have to just do that. I don't, that's lousy if they won't work with us on that. That's, I mean, my experience is very little goes on the last week of school. Parties and track meets and, most of the grades are turned in. So surely we can figure out how to get him completed 6 days early. Ms. Hall, do you feel like battling anybody at the school about something like that?
I will definitely do all that I can. I without even having spoken to the school, I feel like they might be willing to work with us. Our last meeting that we had with them, I know they were kind of like, we're at our wits' end. We don't know what else to do. I mean, at the end of the meeting, she was like, I'm begging anybody to give me an idea of something that we can do. So knowing that's where they're at, they might be willing to work with us and see what we can do.
Okay. And Daniel needs to know, you got to do what you got to do to finish school. You got to do these things and then you're going home, but you've got to do these things. You got to quit running away. You got to quit all that nonsense. You got to finish school and then you're going home to mom. Okay. Y'all know where to find me if something comes up that we need to try to figure out. But that's the best idea I have, is if we could just get him completed before June 6th. I mean, before May 30th. Okay, both parents to be named possessory conservators. No child support, no medical support. Family therapy, obviously, with Miss White. And yet, I do want, Mr. Frost, I hope you will continue to write letters to him and continue to give him good positive reinforcement. And, we'll make sure that those do get to him. And so, Ms. Novak, at least you know where to send the other ones now. So let's go ahead and get those to Ms. Butler.
May I add something?
Yes, sir.
Is he going to get his letters? Because, last time me and Samantha and her husband spoke, it was not on good terms, and we ended up going separate ways, and they blocked me from talking to him on the phone and everything. I just want to make sure that if she sends his letters to him, is he going to get them, though? Because, he hasn't been. When I was writing to him at the last address, he wasn't getting them.
I'll order that he will get the letters, and that as long as they're appropriate. They'll go through Ms. Novak, and or they could go through his attorney ad litem. But yes, I'm going to order that he get the letters.
Yes, ma'am.
And can someone let him know that there's 5 or 6 letters that are going to be coming so he doesn't think his father just forgot him?
Yeah, we can explain to him what happened about the mail. That's not hard to do. So, okay. Then I appreciate everybody's time this morning. Absolutely. Don't hesitate to reach out if we need to get together to resolve something. I know this is somewhat leaving things in sort of a gray area, but I don't know what to do about it today. So let's see what we can get everybody to do. And if y'all need me for something, just let me know. All right. Appreciate everybody.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank y'all.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.